I guess everybody, regardless if you're a creative, like being asked and being desired to like, oh, I want to hear your story, like that music. I want what's going on over here. What
Right.
are you sharing? Like, what is this? What is this? What is it about you? What is it about the world?
Shalom, friends! Welcome to Orange Socks, a podcast celebrating Jewish creativity. I'm your host, Yitzchak Muli, inviting you to join me in exploring the soul of Jewish expression. Shalom, friends! Welcome to the Orange Socks podcast. We're back after a little while, and in the wonderful outdoors near a wonderful old mural of mine, together with a friend, Gershon Braun. Shalom, Gershon. You came for Shabbos, and I
Couldn't leave.
you couldn't leave. Exactly.
Much more to do here, so
Yes.
it's nice to be here in the hillside.
Yes. Welcome back to Hillside.
Yeah, it's good to be in the community and the shul here. It's one of the reasons that I actually come back is because of the shul.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's the energy.
And the people in the shul.
Well, that's what makes the shul the shul.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
So we have a mutual friend, Mayor
Yeah.
Dershowitz.
Yeah. I think.
And, he strongly encouraged us to do this, so here we are.
Yeah, I think Mayor is a mutual friend to a lot of people. So
Yes.
good. Yeah. Glad to be here. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit and to learn about you in the sharing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know of your creativity from the music side. I showed up at an event to do some art something, and there you were behind a guitar, I believe. Was it a drum?
I was actually on hand drums.
On the drums,
Yeah.
okay.
But do a little bit of that too. Yeah.
So what's your creative journey?
By the way, it was more like I showed up and you were there first, just so you know. I felt like I showed up and you were there. It wasn't like, I think you were already there with your.
I was getting set up, okay.
But it could be wrong. Some of us musicians, we show up early, some a little less early. So,
Yes.
yeah. So the question is, what has been my journey?
Yeah, your creative journey.
Well, I guess the backdrop is growing up in a family where music was like reality.
Well, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. I'm one of four, and two boys, two girls, and my dad was gigging when I was in my mother's womb.
Oh, okay.
So we really, there was some music going on. I'm sure I heard it, from within. Hoping it was curated for me, and from the earliest points where I was able to, appreciate music and kind of sit in it. I was watching my father play. My father's a drummer, actually. For many years, he was on the Simcha scene in New York.
Right.
It was a smaller scene back then, so whoever was there were people knew. So there was music around me. My dad would bring us to whatever performances he could as we got older,
Okay.
even as a family. So that's
So a lot of wedding crashing.
wedding crashing, especially during the summer. When we didn't have to cut yeshiva or
Right.
and even like traveling sometimes, like with him if it was out of state or whatever it might be, for a weekend. Big influence is actually NCSY Shabbatones as a kid. That was pretty. It was really impactful. I realized on my Yiddishkeit, actually, on my perception of connecting, getting in touch with emotions, I think, and music, actually, which music is all about emotions, at least for me.
Right.
So I would say that's a big part of giving me some foundation, just in like having a sense of a language in that way with music.
It's beautiful that your father proactively brought you guys along in order to give you that. Then, that he's out there sharing this with the world, and sometimes the old saying is the cobbler's children go barefoot. That was not the case. Your father saw the value and saw the value at the right times to bring you along, which I try to do. I don't do often enough to bring my kids along with me on different. I mean, my kids they join the team where we can. They're hands on and they're doing different activities. But I can do it more.
Yeah, they were at that event that we.
They were at that
they
event.
there.
Yes.
I was
yeah.
like the family. It was like
It was Hanukkah. It was Hanukkah.
Yeah.
So I generally try not to travel on Hanukkah or on on Purim or Jewish holidays unless I'm traveling with everybody.
Yeah.
And then I don't want them to not have a it does happen where I do travel. It does happen. I'm not going to say I never, but where I can, not to diminish their Hanukkah because I have to go out and do something. It's either I'll do something local where they can join me, or I'll pass on further gigs further out.
So that's it's a blessing to be able to do that and have family along with you when you're sharing what's you know. Because I guess if you think about it, they're part of what you become.
Yeah.
They're part of that creative process.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
The push and the pull, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
when was your first gig?
My first gig. Well, I have to say that I did have a Snoopy drum set when I'm not sure if I was 3 or 5. We had this drum set in the house.
Okay.
Didn't have much acoustic value to it, meaning you weren't really getting much sounds out of it. It's like hitting hard plastic.
Right.
But it was a drum set.
It was a drum set.
Yeah. So I can, thank God. Good. Kudos to my parents for
doing that. For you.
That. My first gig. It's a good question. I probably wouldn't be able to remember because there was this period where my dad would have me sit in on gigs with him, and therefore I was just like, was it my gig? Was it his gig? It was clearly his gig, but he was trying to
get you in.
Yeah, So there was a period where that was going on for a while, and perhaps I had more and more independence when I did that. I would say my first gig was probably actually for him, meaning where he was like, "I'm going to pay you." And now that I'm thinking about it, I remember where he would be like, "I'm going to pay," and it was like, "And I'm going to pay you." You know? It was meaning you're not just coming to hang out with me and
He was telling you he saw value in it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I think it was some point around then. It was probably between ages, probably between maybe 18 and 20. I would say maybe a little younger, but yeah, sometime around then.
That's good.
That's how it started, and then over the years, thankfully, got some more exposure and I got hired by other bands, and then I worked for a long time with eventually somebody who became my brother-in-law was 8 Ton Cats.
Okay.
So that was a good period of good times.
So playing with him,
Yeah, as a drummer, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So, for better or worse, it's hard to make music a full-time career.
Well, it's funny you say that. That was something that my dad really was emphatic about growing up. He's like,
emphatic in what direction?
He's like, we're doing this. He's like, but you can't, but don't. This is not you can't make a living of doing this.
Right.
But he's like, giving me opportunities, and he's cultivating, and he's getting me lessons, and
Right.
But you can't.
So what is he saying by that? He's saying don't rely on it for Parnaso. And yet it's so valuable that is it a service to others? Is it a service to self? Is it's just a beautiful thing for you to have?
So I think it's probably definitely some mixed messages in there, but I think it was coming from a place of you're gonna do this, first of all, don't rely on this, and for many years that was my dad, what my dad relied on. You know, my parents to say that, you know, we have a money tree in the backyard.
Right.
I don't know. I never found it.
Oh, they said that you did
My
have
mother said
your
it,
mother
actually.
said it.
It's easy for her to say, probably. But I was looking for it. I never found it. But it could be that over the years. Um, and at the same time, while I was getting that message, like, it's not really, like, you can't fully rely on it, especially if you're going to have a family. He was giving me opportunities. He was paying for lessons. And I think that was a message of, like, if you're going to do it, I want you to do it, like, be the best
Do
you
it
can
well.
be.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, went through a couple of teachers over the years, and you know, some of them more impactful than others. Um, some to this day, I credit like some of what I do. I could clearly like trace back to like who it was that gave me that, you know, that style of drum fill, you
Right.
know, and
Right.
but yeah, I think it was kind of like that was the messaging, you know, of like you can do it well. I want you to like be able to you know, be as expansive as you can be with your talent, but like also know that like don't rely on it, you know. So in a way, I think that you know I ultimately that was the I think that's what I did, which was you know I was in music for a while. There was a period where from let's say from like 2003 or 4 through like 2010 or 11, that was like my bread and butter.
Okay.
And it was great. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Had a lot of opportunities. Got interesting performances or venues that I got to perform at. Some that are like you know world renowned. So I felt you know validated me, I guess, as a musician.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then at that point on, from the kind of after that point, I went back to school. I got my second degree and went into a healthcare field, which is now my you know my primary I guess my primary work I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, music wise, I would say creatively, it's been an interesting journey because if you think about that kind of timeline and that like what happened along there, you would think okay, so then at that point on, you know, maybe there was some music around, but it wasn't like a big part of my definition
Right.
or who I was. However, it's as I guess as only the divine can have it. You know, we fast forward, let's say 10 years post that, and I actually started. Thankfully, I started getting in touch with something that I didn't never thought I had, which is actually writing some music.
Oh,
Yeah,
writing music. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Nice.
So that's been the last couple of years actually. Um,
Just writing.
it's hard to describe even because it's like in a way it's ineffable,
Right.
you know. Just but some of my stories, I would say, and coming out through in song.
Right. And once you wrote a piece, like, was this just for yourself? This is for others? Would you perform it? Would you want to perform it, even for friends and family, or you know, a local kumsitz, or is this just your own
Yeah,
processing?
it's interesting because it touches upon like I think my personality and like how I think kind of you know maybe you might want to call it a dance. How some of us dance towards and you know and then kind of move back a little bit. You know, like I want to we want to share, but we also want to be sheared.
Right.
You know.
Right. We want to give and receive.
Yeah, and in a way, like receiving is like somebody being like, "Oh, you know, let me hear about that," or
Right.
like,
Right.
you know, we're doing right over here,
Right.
and like somebody being curious, because there's a lot of, you know, everybody has what to share. I feel like,
Yeah. Very much so.
and I think there's something about, I guess, everybody, regardless if you're a creative, like being asked and being desired to like, oh, I want to hear your story, like that music. I want what's going on over here. What
Right.
are you sharing? Like, what is this? What is this? You know, what is it about you? What is it about the world? What is it? So I haven't had much and opportunities yet to share my original music. I thankfully because Eitan is my brother-in-law, so and the one song that I've released, he actually does like a cameo on. So we had a few opportunities L time, because it is a song about L, that we shared it in concert together. Since then I have not released anything. I wouldn't call it creator's block. I would just call it a lot of things going on in life, and needing to have resources, whether it means time or money or both, to get through.
Or presence of mind.
Yeah, and presence of mind. Perfectionism sometimes gets in the way. We won't talk about that. What is that even?
Yeah.
But I think I'd have a half a dozen, if not more, more originals. That all I need is just the right co-producer or the time to really get through it. There is one. The next piece that I hope to release is actually something that came to me in my journey of trying to cultivate more trust, just trust in general, be more trusting in the divine, in the world, and it's a real piece of who I am, and it's looking forward to sharing it with the world. But it's been a layered process, so to speak. I actually play drums on it, which I didn't on my first song, and it's called "Let My Heart Be Open." Actually, not sure what to call it yet, because I feel like that's a mouthful. Let my heart be open, but but so far that's what it is. But yeah,
That's what you're feeling right now.
yeah, that's.
Do you play other instruments?
So I play some guitar, so I've
Songs like this song, like you'll play all the instruments or most instruments?
That I'm not capable of, but I composed all the songs I wrote. I composed on guitar.
Okay.
Which is something that kind of just came along the way. Like kind of being around a lot of guitarists. But primarily drums is my first instrument. Sing. I grew up singing. I was doing singing as a kid, and but guitar has been more of a recent thing, and that's how I've been shared, like more of like who I am and what I am. So on the album, the songs, it's me really vocally, and this new one that hopefully will be released the next decade.
The beautiful thing about doing things at your own pace is you're doing things at your own pace. The Latin word for hobby, I think in Latin is passion, the root of the word or whatever it is. So doing it for the passion, which in a way is more passionate than a professional who's doing it for money, so to speak. You got to do it whether you're passionate about it or not.
Right.
The downside of hobbies, as you said, maybe sometime in the next decade. Like if there's no deadlines, there's nothing pushing you, if there's nothing, external compelling you, then it's when the stars align, and the stars often don't align, and or the stars somehow align for the bills that you got to pay. Somehow we manage to make that work. But the things that what could force is a strong word. What can compel you to?
It's interesting
to want to release it sooner. That if it's something that the world should hear, then should the world not hear it sooner than later?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I on a practical, because I could think about things on a theoretical level very well and spend a lot of time in my head doing that. Practically, I think it might take me just taking some time off from work, and being like, this is important,
right?
And it's even worth vacation time, to like, because this is just as much as necessary to who I am as a person as it is to like being able to show up to work and make an income and make a difference. Thank God my day job is something where like I see a difference on most days.
That's
so
amazing.
it's
wonderful.
It's not I would say conventionally creative, but there's a creative aspect. I'm in mental health, so thank God there are opportunities to show up in a way where I feel like I'm doing something uniquely me that could make a difference. But in this case, I think it's funny because I feel like the people around me kind of gave up on pushing me to get finish the song because they know they're like, it's like he's just gonna do it when he's gonna do it,
Right.
But I think practically, it's maybe just taking some time to do it. The other part is really vocally. It's interesting because I'm a perfectionist and because I also know my own voice.
Right.
Like, I feel like I could do a better job than I would right now.
Right.
In sharing my message in the song vocally. So all the other pieces are there.
So you could do a better job
in
when?
recording. So that means
So you've recorded it, but you think you could do a better job at?
I've recorded basically everything, and the vocals I would call them scratch at this point, which
Right.
I'm familiar with that term. Like it's kind of a draft.
Right.
But I want to work on them a little more before I do like a final pass, so to speak.
Right.
That's why. I actually have somebody else, a guest vocalist on the song, which I think is going to really give it lend it a good degree of hopefully it's energy, but also exposure, and so that's there already. But I think that's the difference will be, I think, in me just like saying, okay, I got it. Okay, strengthen my voice a little bit more.
Right.
Okay, we're gonna do it. Yeah.
There's one writer I'm thinking of now. I wish I remember his name, but I mean, a professional writer, a writer who writes his profession, and part of his trick was, every day he would sit down. I don't know, for 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is, but he'd sit down in front of his computer, and his rule was he doesn't have to type, doesn't have to write, but he's not allowed to do anything else. So he'd dedicate this time, and there was no pressure that he must produce, but he must sit at the computer, and he can't do anything else. And that creates this tension that if he's really not feeling it, he doesn't have to write. And there's no compelling that he must write, but he can't do anything else. He can't scroll on his phone. He can't learn. He can't, he can daydream. He can think. But at some point, when you put yourself, I should probably be listening to my own advice as well.
Yeah, interesting.
But it's, even if it's an hour a week or 2 hours a week or whatever your schedule allows, but like, okay, from this time to this time, I'm dedicating to music.
Yeah, that's interesting. I could see how even in my case that may yield something, even though like it's not so much in my case. The block is really what I see as like vocal perfection or vocal improvement, right? Which if I would sit with probably every day, whether I get better or not, there would definitely be some gains. So I could see that. I think in his case, it was coming from a perspective more of like a creative, like you can't force it, but you can give yourself a space to like to non imposed, if you will, expansion or production. So yeah, I see that. It's interesting with music wise creating. I found that like that doesn't work for me.
Okay.
In the way kind of you said, like, if somebody's going, I have to produce this. For me, it's thankfully it's been like just an organic experience, and which sometimes is a frustrating because it's like you come up with like one short, like, I don't know, 4 bars, and you're like, okay, now what? And you're like, now what? Now what? And you're like, oh man, this isn't fun. I need a full like, this is one idea. So that sometimes could be a little, kind of like anticlimactic, but I think.
But you'll save those full bars.
Yeah, and I think if you actually, I'm sure, I know you've sat with like some other musicians before. I don't know his stuff. I've listened to some of it. I think Israel Portnoy. Like sometimes that's what a song ends up being. It's a little bit from here, a little bit from there, or it's just a little bit from here, and then building a whole like even instrumental around it, kind of where that just kind of like creates that much more of like of a layers and like a foundation for that 4 bars. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think if you listen to like I was listening to, I don't. It's interesting. I don't listen to that much music, and certainly contemporary Jewish music, but I was listening to Zusha like on the way up because there's one song that I've been sitting with like, for a bit, and I realized how like how simple it must have been for them to to compose. Now it may not have come. Truth is, it may not have come to them simply, but like it's just basically like one line, and there's so much built around it,
right?
And people were drawn to it. And it's not about right or wrong or like, following a protocol, but like if that's what's moving people, if that's what that's what was coming from them, from who they are, that's, that's the ultimate.
Right.
So, it's, so yeah, so 4 bars could work,
Full
but
bars could work.
but
I actually think about them and
yeah.
like, how do they, how, in general, how does anyone compose? But how do they, like, they've developed a language, and then now they've moved to a new language, and and you see these clips of just the two of them sitting around, jamming. Like, is that where it just, does it come from just sitting down with an instrument and sitting down and giving yourself time and playing and playing and playing until something arrives,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's different for everybody. I would imagine. Like, I don't get to talk, so to speak, get to talk shop in this way
right?
often. My brother is actually a musician also, and he has some beautiful music. Some of it's out there, a couple of songs, and like I don't think like he intentionally works on it either. You know, contrast to like Eitan and my brother-in-law, like I think there are times that he's like, "Want me to write a niggin? Okay, we're gonna write a niggin." Right? And it's like, okay, and he's like, kind of like sometimes it feels like he's like kind of like eking it out, and I'm like, okay, like okay, I guess you know. But yeah, I think it's different for everybody. It's kind of like what's on the knit. What do they call it? The cutting floor.
Right,
Cutting.
right.
It's like how people split and cut things.
Very well. I mean, someone like Eitan, who I imagine does, his pranasa is, his financial, which means he's doing it full time. That, yeah, it's easier because
He's in it.
he's in it. He's
Yeah.
in it constantly.
Yeah.
So,
That's right. So even I think even somebody like that, even because he's in it, even when he's like, okay, I'm gonna put something up, he's already like, there's a lot. I feel like just because there's a lot already
a lot to
going
pull
on
from.
inside, so it's just he could flow into it. Yes, so that would make sense. But I think everybody's different. I think for me, it's been really the my original work is something that has reflected like so much of where I'm at emotionally, you know. The one song that I released called El, it was like Rosh Chodesh El, and I was just like, kind of start off as a kind of this mantra, and then it turned into more like in that first sitting, and it all happened in one sitting, and but it was like this kind of, I was connected to El in this way of like feeling hopeful and feeling positive. And so the song to me is this like kind of calling out to like, almost like a way of calling into like this expansiveness, kind of bringing ourselves back to this like, El's here. And it's like an expansive time and a time of like connecting to love, connecting to the love that we understand on a deeper level is what Rosh Hashanah is about. Is kind of a reclaiming of the self. As Rav Pinson calls it on, I guess, on his book, Reclaiming the Self, Tshuva, right? That's just, so it's like, so that to me was like, that's where I was at that point. So like the song came out of that. This other song that hopefully will come out sometime soon was me sitting and, learning, Gate of Trust, Shar B'tachon and Chobot HaLevavot, a book on just, I guess, going deeper into cultivating our awareness of the divine and ultimately trusting the divine. Like it happened, the song came to me like the morning of, as I'm learning, before I'm learning, and I was like, I felt like praying before I did that learning, that reading, like, please let these words go into my heart. Like let what I'm about to do, let this very intentional, practice of doing this reading, this learning, this depth work, this inner work, but let it actually like penetrate. And that's where the song came from. So just, that's where it usually comes from with me, And then there's the song about heartbreak, which, came before all these actually. And that's just going to take longer because going to be a little more symphonic, and because you got to bring out that, But it's that, and that's a song about this, like trying to understand, like finding the divine in heartbreak, you know, and loss. But that's another story.
Okay. How have people responded to your work? When you do have the chance to share.
Yeah.
And is it that you're definitely doing it for yourself, but when you do share, people go, oh, that's nice, that's pretty, to me that's the ultimate insult. Oh, that's pretty. Means that it's completely lost on them, and it's they don't want to say like that's pretty means, oh, that's completely meaningless to me. But it's pretty, so I'm just wondering, as you're saying, I mean, this is really an expression of your heart. Someone says, oh, that's nice,
Yeah, I'm gonna pull this out of the ground for a second, and on that note, and be like, okay, it's like, oh, here, I made this for you, right? You're gonna be
Right.
like, what are you what might you say?
Nah. Like, oh, that's pretty,
Right. So I'm
like,
like,
wow, like, yeah, I
right.
mean,
So
the way
like,
people
right,
respond.
exactly. So like, you look at it and
Yeah.
you're like, okay, look at how detailed this is.
Right.
You know how much attention there is in the length of like each. What are these called? Buds? I don't know.
Petals.
Petals. And the shapes and the direction that each one is facing. So yes, it's pretty.
Right.
I mean, maybe compared to a rose, somebody might not say this is pretty, but it's like so detailed,
Right.
so sophisticated. So I'm with you on the part when somebody says that's pretty, because I think we want people to see like the subtleties in the work that we're doing, as a creative. So pretty, like, you might feel, okay, they noticed, but it's not like noticing,
Right.
So back to your question. So because I try not to share it, because I want to share it in its final form, the same way, I guess, I'm assuming you could relate to that, right? Actually, I don't know. What is it like as an artist, like not sharing? Like, I'm not going to show anybody until I'm done with the project.
So, I mean, at the moment
Yes.
in today's Instagram world,
Yeah.
right, everyone talks about sharing the process, and really people do enjoy seeing the behind the scenes, seeing the process, seeing the unfinished. I struggle with that. I have a very hard time sharing the process, both because when I'm really in it, I forget to be recording, and like. Yeah, sometimes I get worried about sharing the magic sauce, like how it's made, how the sausage is made. But there are times where it is about the process is the product. And then there are times where I finish something and I'm really proud of it and I feel a certain way about it, and it just falls flat. It doesn't get the reception that I was hoping for, or that I imagined it would get. And yet, on the flip side, other things where I'm,
like,
I've created, whatever. I'm not like, whatever. Like it's not my greatest work, but I'm putting it out there anyway because you want to keep putting out, you want to keep creating, and you want to keep sharing. And whenever you create, the next thing will be stronger because of the previous thing, and then it resonates.
Meaning, even that is like a process. Meaning, it's part of a larger, meaning that one that wasn't to you wasn't exceptional, but people are like, okay, oh, cool, and you're like, okay, but it's helping to build.
Yeah. I mean, they say Picasso made, I don't know what it is, 9,000 something plus works. Yeah. And we only know of however many, 50, 100, of like Picasso's. All the rest of it, he made and he made and he made and he made and he kept on creating and creating. Yeah. And through all that, the good ones rose to the surface. But if he sat around waiting just for the right inspiration, for the right, oh, now I'm going to make a masterpiece. Right. It's like, no, I'm just putting these out there.
It's a great lesson. It's something great, very important, worthwhile to remember. So I don't share it. I share it with people close to me. So whether it's family sometimes, or it's like close friends or mentors, I share it with. And so the people who I've shared it with, they've thankfully they've all been moved and they could point to like the the subtleties that we want them to see.
Right.
So that's been encouraging. I I think it's very affirming and
Right.
validating to have that. I think part of and maybe this is part of maybe the challenge with maybe any artist is the kind of the fear that the world won't see it.
Right.
You want the world to see all the parts, not just because it's just like a song that has energy, like hear the story, which in the end it's okay, because people will hear what they need to hear,
Right.
and hopefully the message that I'm, whatever message anybody is transmitting, so to speak, and through their work, will land where it's going to land.
Right.
Yeah, but thankfully it's been positive. Um, uh, which is why it makes it a little more challenging, like when it's not out, when you're not done yet, and you're like, okay, so far it's been good, been good results, But thank God, it's a lot of people out there doing a lot of good, in by way of sharing who they are, and for me, yeah, mostly I can relate to music wise. Like like your art is like, okay, I can relate to it,
Right.
But it's but I don't have an eye, I would say, for sophistication when it
Right.
comes to art. Maybe we can go to a museum once in the city and go to some of the, you could help me appreciate some of the,
Sure. Sure.
know,
I think part of it is, yeah, you want
art.
people to feel, you want people to have a reaction, positive, negative, you want it to move, moving some of it. It's a very big word, to move you.
Get touched.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but to hopefully to create a dialogue, and not everything will talk to everyone.
And I think that's sometimes that's it's a little bit, that's part of the invitation, I think, I guess as a musician or creative, that you can like see somebody else's work and be like, and like, and you have to like take a step back and be like, 1 second, this came from who they are,
Right.
and it's a reminder of humility, I feel like, because you could have it in music also. You're like, really, that doesn't move me, but it's gonna move somebody, and it probably moved the person who created it,
Right.
because it moved them to create, create
Right.
it. Yeah. So I think ultimately in that way, I feel like it's a lesson on like that same way that like you could create something that may not be your greatest, and people are moved by it and they're excited by
Right.
it, but to you it's like, that every little piece has a place, and is moving someone,
Right.
and is a big is a part of the larger art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So I want to shift gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Israel Portnoy told me, which is something I didn't know about you, is that you're also involved in breathwork. So tell us a little about that, and how it jives with your music, and really a little bit. I'm not schooled enough to know, and maybe the audience is or isn't. But breathwork is becoming, it's a term that it's becoming more prevalent, I suppose, in the the greater Orthodox community. Share a little bit.
So I I would say that it's amazing that how how accessible practicing breathwork is now, and also incredible to see the impact that it's had on people. There's a lot within the space of breathwork, within like what that even means,
Right.
as far as like what breathwork means, um, and it's also interesting to see like where things are going with it, and how how it has spread. Um, I'll start by saying that I got into what we call breathwork from a different angle than I think many of the people today are pursuing it. And that's also that's also because the results that I have with breathwork is of a certain nature, and that's again saying there's a lot out there to do. So what's going on today is that there are groups, there are one-on-one, it's one-on-one coaching to use breathing as a way to release emotions and hopefully maybe sometimes even relive experiences, but with the intention of it being able to freeing yourself from it, right? Um, and that is, I would say, what seems like the majority of breathwork that's being done today, or at least that we hear of in the from world.
Right.
And that's my understanding. Uh, and it's and you could have a range of experiences or outcomes with that. Sometimes not positive, going through a session, doing something because it could bring up something that's difficult, and you could have something difficult where you're staying in it and you're not moving past it, or you could bring up something and get through it, or have an expansive experience, almost in a sense of like a psychedelic experience, which is a major reason why that practice of breathwork is popular today, because it's a way to have an expansive psychedelic experience without taking a substance,
Right.
and using your own body's power and ability. So the breath work that I do is a little different than that. It's actually more about a grounding, quieting the mind, getting present, which is where I came from, where I came into breath work. And so I don't currently I don't offer that, the other type, which is what most of the from people are pursuing. However, it's very worthwhile and valuable. I Actually, the opportunity that I met Israel at, where he knows about my work, is because it was like a Hanukkah gathering where there was a bunch of guys that just wanted to like connect to Hanukkah with some music and something different. So he was there, you know, um, enhancing us and creating energy with musically. And I did a session where to help people just get present. And thankfully, it was an impactful session. I saw the response, the reaction. But that's different than a lot of what people are doing today with breathwork. No, not one is not better than the other. They're both very valuable.
Right.
Um, the and In fact, I've done some of the other breath work as kind of as a participant. Um, it's it can For me, it 1 out of the 5 times I did it, it was very impactful. The rest of them, still waiting for results.
Okay.
That's not saying I don't. That's not saying I don't endorse it. I'm just saying that
Right.
I know it's powerful, but I think different people different things work for them. And in fact, I'm hoping to expand my own toolkit and do more in that space and offer
Right.
more of that. However, there's a variety of offerings. I would say all those offerings come into what's called, if you describe it, it's called holotropic breathwork. I don't know if you ever heard the term before.
I've heard the term.
Holotropic means wholesomeness across, basically. So through this process, my understanding is you are achieving a certain holism or wholeness of
Right.
self, across, across your, I guess, your being, your existence. And I think my understanding, this really became more popular in the Western world when Stan Grof, who was a psychiatrist who had access to LSD for a long period, when the pharmaceutical company that was experimenting with LSD were giving it out to anybody or any clinician just to try to find different uses for it. And eventually the government, especially the U.S. government, reined it in and said, we're not. we can't do that anymore. We can't just
Right.
give out LSD. So he did some research and cultivated a way to use ancient practices of breathing to help people get into an altered state, which
Right.
they otherwise were doing with LSD, to do the work that they were doing with LSD. So that's the beginning, so to speak, of what we call holotropic breathwork, which is really, I think, my understanding, what ties a lot of the breathwork practice today together, is that piece of like doing breathwork that's going to bring up things inside of you, kind of get the body into a certain state, and in that state, some work can happen. Different practitioners, or I would say sub practices, let's say, or using that basis of holotropic breathwork, use different ways to bring it out. What some people use more like hands-on, like while they're breathing, they'll like touch different parts of your body and say, breathe into this area,
Right.
and hopefully channeling certain parts for certain emotions that are stuck in certain areas. Um, it's like I said, it's very powerful. There is a caveat; it's not for everybody. I think, unfortunately, a lot of the people who are practicing it don't talk about that, because similarly to psychedelics, which we know, any informed clinician will know, it's not for everyone.
Right.
Some people with certain backgrounds, mental health wise, it may not do well for, it may actually do
Right.
worse
Great
for.
damage. Right.
So that's but people don't know that about that type of breath work. So therefore, they're just like, oh, just come, which of course it sounds organic and it sounds less menacing, even if there are adverse effects. But it can have adverse effects.
Right.
My teacher is very adamant about people knowing that. My teacher's actually an integrative psychiatrist who travels the world sharing breath to heal the world. But yeah, it's very powerful. Absolutely. The stuff that I practice is, like I said, is more of like a grounding type of breathing, and thankfully I have opportunities to do that in a few settings. One of them is my current day job. I'm a nurse in an outpatient mental health clinic, so there are people coming in for all sorts of stuff, and or just to work on themselves, or just to deal with like crippling depression, or I mean, I got seriously ill clients in my day job, and thankfully I do some groups with them using breath
Okay.
as an anchor. That's been impactful. It's actually one of the reasons why I've stuck to this opportunity, and this, because they allow me to do that, even though I'm the nurse and
Right.
it's not a conventionally nursing thing to do.
Right. Right.
Um, the other opportunity that I have regularly to do this is, actually I work in NYU, in their hospital, actually inpatient. And I work in their main hospital in the city, and I'm part of a team of integrative health nurses where we use mind-body medicine to just ease the burden of clients. We call them patients in that setting. Clients in my day job, patients in my per diem job, to quiet the mind, have an easier time in the hospital, like let go of whatever their identification is right now with their illness, with their sickness, which in a hospital, it's almost like,
You're defined by it.
yeah, especially in that place. Yeah, so it's my other opportunity to do it. And then I do some work privately with clients, with breath. And breath is just, because we're always doing it, and because it's how we're alive. To me, it's always the pathway and the way to tap into like your vitality, and to how you feel. So you can influence how you feel through your breath at any given moment, whether to increase energy, whether to, so to speak, like conserve energy, let's say, or reduce energy, especially if you're
Right.
feeling like you're overloaded and there's a lot
Right.
going on. So it's the most foundational power, I feel like, tool, um, for, as humans, for us to use to quiet the mind, to get present, to heal. If you add it with visualization, there's apparently much you can do. I'm using it in that sense, trying to help people just ease their burden. quiet the mind so they can get in touch with like what is going on here right now.
Right.
But also be open to like the softer parts of yourself. Like I think the way I look at it, like the work that I do, the most I can do, when I feel the most like that I was able to be successful is to help somebody have an experience of themselves in a way that they're not used to. Experiencing a certain tenderness and softness within who they are, that from moment to moment, many of us aren't in that place. Because of just where we are in 2026,
Right.
being humans.
The noise.
Yeah.
Right. Do you know, have your own sessions of breath work? You know, before at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, do you self-medicate, if you call it that?
That's a good question. I self-medicate.
Do you use it as a tool for grounding yourself?
Yeah. So I came to breathwork through my own work, and that was incredible anxiety and almost like sometimes bordering on panic. Um, and I it's a story on its own, which we could have another session to talk about. Um, and but in short, I was introduced to my teacher, who used to do groups in New York, like on a monthly basis. He actually was doing it for many survivors or first aid workers from 9/11
Okay.
that were still, you know, still working with their own trauma, and often clearly actually lung conditions that happen from the exposure to some of the
Chemicals.
contaminants and toxins in ground zero. So I started by going to a drop-in with my teacher, and the first session I went to that night, I slept differently. I just felt differently, and I was like, whoa. I'm like,
Right.
whoa. I was like, wow. So yeah, it's a regular part of my life. It's a regular practice for me every day. And sometimes, when I just need it, when I feel like I need it. The amazing thing about breath is that like you don't need to you might need to learn how to shift to like learn to practice, but it's something you can use anytime wherever you are. The type of breath work that's very popular out there. It's very powerful, but you can't just like do it like if you're in your car or on the line at the
Right.
bank. You have to adjust your breathing in a way that like you want to deal with the almost rage you might feel on the BQE, but you can do that with some breath. When you walk coming home and your wife, your mother, whoever it is, your spouse, whatever, and okay, take a couple of just easy breaths first. You change your breath a bit and change your mind. It takes time to get into that, to be able to just do that. As that the effects should happen more quickly, but that's the amazing thing about breath. And yes, so it's in short, I practice what I preach. It's foundational to be able to offer that, especially in the hospital setting, because the hospital setting can be a really stressful environment.
Yeah.
So I often walk into a room and it's like you feel the tension. So like if I'm not feeling centered myself,
Right.
then it's hard to offer something to somebody.
Right. Right.
So
So is this something that I can try at home? Is something that I can do? Is something that the listeners? Are there any?
well, outside of doing a brief practice over here, which I don't know, I feel like outside and the noise, it may not be the right thing. Um, the a simple practice that I think is popular, that often yields some initial results just to get you through a moment, um, is something called the physiological sigh. Um, some people know it as physiological breath, I think. Essentially, it's so you're gonna you're gonna exhale like with like a kind of like and like humming along with it, right? So we go or sighing with it. It could be a
Right.
hum, it could be a sigh, like. Right, and then the inhale. It's a little sniff at the end. That's what.
Right.
Yeah. There's a. I mean, you could call it a sniff, and it's easier that way than another breath. But so you're going with the mouth, and then the breath. You're breathing back in through the nose, and then at the end taking a little
A little
extra. Yeah.
extra. Right.
So I would say if you just do like a cycle of 3 of that, when you're feeling like you feel like you're feeling a little tensed up, or overclouded with thought, or feeling tension in your body, do a cycle of 3. You should be able to feel a difference. It's important to use the sound, using your vocal cords at that, because it stimulates your vagus nerve, which is the nerve that's implicated in your parasympathetic system, which is the part of the nervous system that's involved in relaxing. So that's a very simple technique. I use it often. Sometimes you need to do it more than 3 times, but it's at the very least it gives you a moment of like, oh, a little space. Uh,
Okay.
yeah.
And if someone wants to know more about breathwork and either the grounding style of work that you do, or even the other
Yeah.
style, where does one begin?
Yeah, sure. So I know a lot of people know about Wim Hof, right?
Right.
Right, Wim
Right.
Hof. I've definitely done some of his work. He's very influential and powerful teacher. That's also some impactful work. You could look up Wim Hof, some of his work. You could look up Google the term holotropic breath work and go down a rabbit hole there.
Right.
A big foundation of the work I do is called coherent breathing, which is essentially it's about your system experiencing coherence, which is another term for like just kind of being clear and online.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that happens on this biological, emotional, and spiritual, hopefully, level when you're doing that breathing.
Right.
It's tapping in and having this integration of self, hopefully. You can look that up too, coherent breathing, or coherence. And I have a website that I don't know what I would call it, the beta stage. We did a soft launch. I'll gladly share it. Welcome the feedback. It's called giftofbreath.com.
Okay.
Yeah, because I try to look at it as breath is a gift, and if we can perspect on it in that way, there's so much we can experience in the way of being a gift.
Okay. Beautiful. All right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there.
Yeah.
We could keep going, but let's pause for now. I close with 2 scripted questions.
Okay.
So thank you. And scripted question number 1 is: who are 3 creatives you think that the audience should know about?
What are the parameters?
Jewish creatives,
Jewish creatives.
and it doesn't have to be 3. It
Okay.
could be 1 or 5 or anything in between.
Yeah. So, actually, I think you had him on maybe at one point. Moshe Sobel, Marlon Sobel.
Yes. Yes.
So he's something else.
Yeah.
I actually had the opportunity to do some backup vocals on some of his music
Okay.
a couple of years ago. His music is fresh. His influences are varied. You can hear it, and it's all like very much
Yeah.
soul based.
Yeah.
I think he's he's and many people. I feel many people don't appreciate his stuff because it is so different.
Right.
You know, um, I think he's somebody that it's worthwhile knowing, or
Really
at
getting
least,
into.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like and giving it some time, especially if you're not used to the influences of music that have influenced him, in his music.
Definitely agree.
And also like what he does just rhythmically, how he's bringing people together. Um, what's going on biologically when people are in that drumming space and connecting through rhythm is very powerful. It's pre-verbal,
Yeah.
You don't got to talk about it.
Yeah.
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 Let me think. Anybody else? I would say my brother. My brother, he's he's pretty shy and reserved. But you could check some of his music out. His name is Shmuel Braun. Doesn't have a website yet. But if you listen to his music, you hear also like a variety of expression. And he has yet to share the rest of himself with the world, which is definitely a lot of creativity as far as how he looks at the world, with such positivity, hope, and he's actually an inspiration to me. My brother, he's my best friend, and I'm inspired by him.
So
So
you gotta be able to share some of what he has to
yeah,
share.
yeah. But yeah, maybe I was like, maybe the right time he could be sitting over here talking to him because
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
such a fresh view of the world, and I think like in mankind, like just that we all have something, and that's his message. So yeah, I don't think he has a functional website right now, but you could look him up, Shmuel Braun. He's got some music on YouTube, also on and I think on Spotify, and yeah, if you ever bump into him, it's worthwhile talking to him.
okay.
Yeah. If you give me a moment on the third one. Um, mm,
Two's good also.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
We'll leave it at 2.
leave it at two.
Sure.
And the last question that we close with is, what's your advice for young creatives for them to find their orange socks?
Um, I think being patient with yourself is where it's for sure starts. That's just being kind with yourself. Um, um, realizing that that Rome wasn't made in a day, as they say, and a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. That not to identify with the days or the moments that you're stuck, or perhaps the perfectionism. It's to some extent, or to some extent, I feel like it's in all of us, that perfectionism, and that you know the walls that we hit, but not to identify with that, and to be open, to see that as part of, like what you said before, it's part of, like, you had to create so much of of the blah to get to the wow, you
Right.
know and to have fun with the experience.
Yeah.
Experience, it's I something that I another another phrase I've heard that I really I enjoy is, growth in life is non-negotiable. However, if you're doing it joyfully or through kicking and screaming, that's up to you. So
Amazing.
just, I think keeping that in mind, and tapping into that possibility that there's joy to be experienced right here, right now, it's something that's amazing. And just to give credit, I think I heard that one from Gedalia Fenster. So
Okay.
yeah, so give credit where it's due. But yeah, absolutely, like, change happens. You want to call it growth, you want to call it change. Change is happening just by being alive. Change. And how you experience change, how you react to it, is up to you.
It's up to you.
So hopefully we can all shift ourselves and align ourselves with the expansive part of change and growth, and even when it doesn't necessarily feel that way initially.
Amen.
Yeah.
Gershon, thank you.
היום נעשה משהו בלתי נשכח